I have to be honest, when a movie called Kraken arrives, I do not want it to whisper. I want cold water, ancient fear, something moving under the surface, and one moment where everyone realizes they are not at the top of the food chain anymore. That is why this new Norwegian monster movie caught my attention. The Kraken has been haunting sea stories for centuries. Sailors were telling stories about a massive squid-like creature in the Norwegian Sea as far back as the 1500s, and cinema has been borrowing from that nightmare for more than 100 years. Georges Méliès brought it to the screen in Under the Seas in 1906, and since then we have seen versions in Clash of the Titans and Pirates of the Caribbean. Now the legend gets a solo movie. The story follows Johan, played by Sarah Karami, a young marine biologist working for marine research. She is sent to the coastal town of Vangsnes after strange incidents begin surrounding a local fish farm. At first, Johan does not want to return because the town is tied to a painful part of her past. But once a whistleblower video appears, she realizes something bigger is happening, and she has to investigate it herself. When Johan arrives, the mystery begins pulling her in from every direction. She reconnects with an old partner, discovers evidence of unknown aquatic life, and learns that several tourists have been found dead. The deeper she digs, the more the trail points toward experiments connected to the fish farm and the nearby fjord. What begins as a scientific investigation quickly becomes a fight for survival. What I appreciate about Kraken is that it does not rush straight to the tentacles. The movie takes a page from Jaws, and that is a dangerous comparison because Jaws is basically the sacred text of aquatic terror. But here, the influence works. The opening stretch gives us time to understand Johan, the town, the fish farm, and the uneasy feeling that something unnatural is moving below the water. The creature stays in the back of our minds like a shadow beneath the boat. There is also an environmental warning running underneath the story. Kraken is not only saying, "Big monster attacks people," it is asking what happens when humans treat nature like a test lab and assume the ocean will stay quiet forever. The film points toward the impact of fish farms in Norwegian fjords, and while that message is not as deep as the nuclear trauma beneath the original Godzilla, it gives the movie a real backbone. The creature is not random punishment. It feels like the sea answering back. That idea gives Kraken more personality than many modern monster movies. Too many creature features think all they need is a giant beast and a few victims screaming in the dark. This one tries to connect its horror to human arrogance, local industry, and ecosystems we barely understand. The scariest creatures are not just powerful. They feel inevitable, but this is also where the movie shows its cracks. The screenplay sets up several side plots that never fully pay off. Johan is exposed to the creature's ink-like blood and begins seeing strange visions connected to it. For a moment, the film seems to be hinting at poisoning, a psychic link, or maybe something supernatural. Then that idea fades away. A separate thread involving Maria and her friends also never becomes as clear as it should. Some character decisions are frustrating too. I know monster movies need people to make mistakes, because if everyone behaved perfectly, the movie would be 10 minutes long and the Kraken would be out of work. But there are moments where supposedly smart people take risks that feel too careless. Johan handling unknown biological samples without proper protection is one example. Still, when Kraken focuses on the creature horror, it becomes much stronger. Oi makes the smart decision to hold back the full reveal for much of the runtime. Instead of showing the Kraken constantly, the film uses shadows, water movement, aftermath, and smaller attacks to build suspense. That restraint helps the monster feel bigger than what we can see. Sometimes what is hidden below the surface is scarier than the thing jumping directly at the camera. The movie also adds a clever update to the myth by introducing parasitic offspring connected to the K. Kraken. These smaller creatures allow the danger to move into tighter spaces where the main monster could not physically attack the characters. That gives the film more variety and keeps the threat from becoming repetitive. The giant Kraken is the headline attraction, but these smaller horrors make the danger feel immediate and unpredictable. Then, when the creature reveals itself in the final stretch, the movie goes big. No, this is not a MonsterVerse level budget, and a few shots make that clear. Some effects look rough, and there are moments where the image becomes unintentionally funny. But I still give the film credit because Yo understands the visual power of this creature. The Kraken is not just a big squid. It feels ancient, heavy, alien, and almost mythological. When the movie frames it correctly, it has real nightmare energy. Sarah Karami brings warmth and sincerity to Johan. Mikkel Bratt gives Eric a steady presence as Johan's former partner. While Øyvind Bransk plays the fish farm owner, he feels like someone whose business choices could unleash a disaster. What makes Kraken interesting is that it understands the movies that came before it. You can feel Jaws in the pacing, Godzilla in the environmental warning, and centuries of sea monster folklore in the atmosphere. But it does not copy those influences. It uses them as the foundation for a specifically Norwegian creature feature, one tied to fjords, cold landscapes, old legends, and the uneasy relationship between people and the sea. Will Kraken become a classic on the level of Jaws or Godzilla? Probably not. Those films changed cinema. Kraken is not rewriting the genre, but it proves there is still life in the monster movie when filmmakers respect the creature, respect the setting, and remember that suspense matters more than constant noise. For me, the best thing about Kraken is that it treats the legend like more than a gimmick. The ocean has always been one of humanity's greatest fears because we cannot control it, cannot fully map it, and cannot see what is waiting underneath us. That is why the Kraken myth has survived for centuries. It represents the terrible possibility that the sea is not empty. It is watching. So what do I think? Kraken is an imperfect but very watchable creature thriller. It has enough tension to satisfy monster movie fans, enough environmental subtext to give the story weight, and enough sea horror to make the final act rewarding. I wish the script tied up its side plots more cleanly, and I wish the effects were stronger in a few key moments. But I would rather watch an ambitious monster movie with rough edges than a polished one with no pulse. Now I want to hear your take. Does the Kraken deserve a bigger place in modern monster cinema, or should filmmakers leave the legend in the deep? And if you had to choose, would you rather face a giant shark, a giant ape, a kaiju, or the Kraken itself? Be honest, because that answer says a lot about your survival instincts. Kraken is now available in select theaters and on digital platforms. And if this movie proves anything, it is that the sea still has plenty of nightmares left to throw at us. Keep your eyes on the water, keep your theories ready, and I will see you in the next Screen Radar Breakdown.